Welcome to Peace of Mind for Pet Parents, the podcast by BrightHaven Caregiver Academy. I'm Gail Pope.
And I'm Karen Wylie. And together we're here to support you in navigating life with your aging or ill pets. We know how deeply you care for your beloved companions, and we're here to offer guidance, understanding, and resources for this meaningful journey.
Each episode, we'll explore topics that address the daily challenges, emotional realities, and choices you face as a pet parent, helping you and your pets find peace, comfort, and joy. Whether it's making sense of a new diagnosis, adjusting to changing needs, or simply seeking a place to feel understood, you're not alone. Thank you for being here with us.
Hello, and welcome back to Peace of Mind for Pet Parents. I'm Karen Wylie, here as always with Gail Pope. This episode is part 2 of our conversation about Gail's new book, The BrightHaven Way, Lessons from 700 Animal Teachers. In the previous episode, we talked about how Gail's years of caring for hundreds of animals helped shape the philosophy that eventually became known as the BrightHaven Way. Today, we're continuing that conversation, looking at how some of those experiences began to challenge Gail's early assumptions and gradually change the way she thought about healing and care. That's where we're going to pick up today. As I was reading the manuscript and you were being very honest about your adoption of each of the layers of the menu for healing, it was like, wow, that's the person I didn't know back then. I know who she is now. And it's just so interesting to see. One of the chapters, of course, is about classical homeopathy, which you were very honest about as well, the raw feeding and the homeopathy. So what did move you from the skepticism to the openness? Was it trying these things across the board? Because you certainly allowed yourself to try something with just one animal. You can see that. That would actually probably be my approach most of the times, but you went with everybody, which allowed you to then see changes.
The homeopathy story, again, it started with me being exceedingly resistant. I'd never even heard of it. I didn't know what it was. It was voodoo. It began with one animal miracle, and that was a cat called Cindy. It began with the second miracle human, if you like, and that was Dr. Christina Chambreau, who's very well known. Between Vicky and Dr. Christina, Cindy, who was dying, lived on. It's a long story, and I'm sure you don't want me to tell it now.
We have talked about it on the podcast. I'll look around and see if we can't give everybody the number of the podcast so they could listen to it if they want.
And then Cindy was one animal. She had a miraculous recovery and lived on, courtesy of classical veterinary homeopathy and Dr. Christina. But then I was still nervous. Cindy shouldn't have died. She did die. But maybe it wasn't to do with that. I wasn't resistant. I was scared, in all honesty, because it was a huge thing that happened. But then Christina, being Christina, was like, okay, now I've got you. Now you're going to move forward. Now you have to explore this. She telephoned me a couple of days later and she said, I've got a list of classical veterinary homeopaths who I know, who I feel sure will volunteer to each take an animal and help you. She said, I'll send you their names and their phone numbers. You just need to call them and talk to them. And I refused. I said, no, I can't do it. I really can't do that. I just feel too embarrassed. I don't know what I'm talking about. And I'm scared. No, I'm not doing that. That is just too pushy. So guess what? They all called me. That's how strong Christina is.
Dr. Christina, there we go.
She literally contacted them all. I think eventually when I added up, there were 24. And that is an awful lot of veterinarians. They each contacted me and offered to take an animal as a client. I was basically pushed into a corner. What could I do? Oh, that's awfully sweet of you, but no, thank you. So right. I learned an awful lot very quickly. And one of the things that I really learned was that homeopathy isn't something to take lightly. It isn't something to say, oh, yes, I'll spend a couple of weekends and learn it, or I'll take a quick course. I thought that maybe I could do this. I can learn it. In fact, I've still got a lot of books. I bought a whole ton of books and I investigated a training course. I think it was like after the first day or 2 days of learning more, I realized there's absolutely no way. It's either care for the animals or stop doing what I'm doing and put my life into learning this darn thing, because it's immense.
It's a whole different worldview.
I decided then there's no way. You can't dabble in homeopathy. You need to learn it. For an acute situation, absolutely, I felt comfortable. But balancing a being's body, mind, and spirit, it's difficult. There are some wonderful homeopaths out there. Of course, the vets that we used were classical veterinary homeopaths because they've been trained as veterinarians and as homeopaths. They put it all together, and wow.
And you had 24 of those voices. How
Exactly. So there began yet another journey of seeing chronic illness change, to learn that I wasn't suppressing or fixing their illnesses, that this magical medicine seemed to be actually changing everything. And they were getting healthier instead of sicker. So it was just a huge wave of learning, a huge wave of acceptance, of letting go, of finding a balance between conventional care and holistic care, understanding how important both sides. At that point, both sides were equally important. We had a lot of very sick animals that needed some conventional prescribing as well as homeopathic prescribing to find a good balance for their lives. So there were more lessons, more animals who demonstrated their need for this balance of using both sides of the fence. Now is known as integrative medicine. Little by little, I think the world is tippy-toeing into this middle part, which honors both. So that's really good. A lot of animals teaching me.
I was just going to say, a lot of animal teachers are along the way. What advice would you give pet parents who are unsure about making this kind of shift and trying something new?
Baby steps. I think if you feel interested in something but don't really know much about it, curious, then you're on the edge of trying, and take it slowly, learn. I think education as well as experience, and you can't get experience until you start to dabble a little bit. So whatever your interest is, again, animal Reiki, acupuncture, all different areas. There are so many holistic modalities that offer healing in various ways.
Yes,
so again, it's just picking up what interests you and taking it slowly. Don't jump in too fast. I was never one that wanted to do that's for sure. That's where I learned. I say baby steps all the time, because to me, that's what life is about. It's just taking a slow path forward.
Trying one of those methods or modalities and just learning about it and taking it that way. You talk about walking on both feet in the manuscript, and where you never rejected conventional medicine, and you really did not. You embraced diagnostics and surgery when needed, both the conventional and holistic tools. How do people avoid becoming extreme in either direction? Just thinking of our pet parents out there.
We first have to realize that some people have no idea or wish to learn one or the other. They're embedded in the world of conventional care. That's like me, how I grew up. I wasn't open to learning about holistic medicine, really. It wasn't part of what I did. So I think a lot of people don't and won't open and embrace something new because it's simply they're comfortable in the path they've got. I guess curiosity is one of the factors. If when you see an animal either with an illness or who's very elderly, who has a spark that you're not familiar with, that can do it. Now I can hear myself saying, so he looks wonderful for his age. How do you care for him? What's his secret? We do it with humans. Oh my goodness, you're 60? Gosh, you only look 40. What's your secret? That's the kind of thing I think that brings you into this kind of thinking, don't you?
I think it certainly can, because sometimes you don't see things in yourself that other people do. Sometimes you're so used to seeing your own pet every day that you don't notice the differences that other people or your vet might say. I feed partly fresh food and a little bit of kibble, but my dogs are very shiny with their coats. That's something that almost every time I'm in a clinic waiting room, somebody's got to be noticing that as something very unusual. So I think it reinforces the decision. It reinforces what you're doing, because it's, oh, okay. It's other people noticing. It's making a difference. Any changes we make in how we care for our pets is we're trying to make a difference. We're usually trying to improve a situation, help them gain weight or help them lose weight, or eat a little bit more, eat a little bit less.
Yeah, we're doing the same for ourselves, right?
Yes, absolutely.
It's all the same. We're all following our own path to hope for wellness and a good balance for healing.
A good balance is right. Now, a couple of the turning point stories included in the book, one, of course, is Cindy, and another one is Winston. So, without going into too much of the behind the scenes drama, what did those experiences teach you about staying open even when something challenges your training?
It's fascinating. We haven't had this kind of conversation before.
We
It's
haven't.
taken me down a different road, but the word that keeps coming up for me is stubbornness. I was so stubborn and stuck in my ways. Then the next part is fear. I think I was fearful of making changes because it was scary and someone might die. And I was doing my best to keep them alive with the path that I was on. And in the knowledge that I was doing the right thing, it was very scary to learn about all these other new things coming along. So I think Mother Nature, the universe, God, I don't know who to blame, but I think all of these special animals came along at the right time with the right illness, with the right situation, and taught me. I guess I'm so stubborn that I needed to see like a miracle of healing. It's interesting, and I think this may be in the book, but when Cindy died, that was my first experience. I was at work the following day and had a call from the lab saying, just wanted to let you know, by the way, that we're not going to be billing you for that cat, Cindy, because it's very clear, obviously the blood was drawn, but she basically died. Okay. Those kinds of things don't happen to most of us. They really don't. But I guess I really do see it, that I had to be basically hit in the face with all these things so hard that I reeled in shock.
Yeah, that according to her blood work, she should be dead.
Yeah.
They were interpreting it saying this must have been,
Could possibly have stayed alive.
and there you were with a living cat.
Carried on living too. And again, with Mariah, the thought of an animal dying naturally and not being euthanized, had it occurred to me that humans do it? No, but it was what was accepted in my life at that time. And so the thought of Mariah dying naturally was abhorrent. It filled me with fear, and I just couldn't allow it, but I had no choice. And boy, you can't get a bigger lesson than something like that happening. All of these things, I've been dragged kicking and screaming into this world by some very special people. And again, some very special animals. Indeed, Mariah, Winston, there's a whole stream at the beginning of all of this that were larger than life, as it were.
Yes.
So I don't believe there was any coincidences back then. In fact, I firmly believe Vicky was a witch.
Or an angel.
Maybe.
Yeah, either way, either someone to help you on your path, because taking the natural approach to end of life and dying, your understanding of end of life care certainly evolved over time, we've talked about. What do you hope pet parents understand about the difference between prolonging a pet's life and supporting quality of life?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is that we tend to want to fix things as humans. We want to prolong the life, we want to fix it, and we're scared of death. I think those are the main things. But in actual fact, I think animals particularly teach us that it's not about the length of the life, it's about the quality of the life. I suppose as I stepped forward in the learning process, it all started to fit together that although I wasn't focused eventually on the length of the life, I was focused on how my animals were doing, how they were feeling. It didn't occur to me that they were going to live long lives. Then we get Fraser, the cat, who lived to be 34, and Ollie in that lovely picture at 24. It just grew. It's all important, but it's the length of the life is the one thing that isn't as important, because I think it really is more about living in the moment, achieving happiness and balance. If animals had the same lifespan as humans, I don't think we'd be so fixated on it. We don't want them to die so much sooner than we do, so we're fixed on keeping them alive with us as long as possible. And that's probably not the best thing for us to be doing.
No, it tends to shift our focus to be avoiding death as opposed to what can I do with them now so that they're enjoying their now.
And that we are too with them.
Yeah, that's so important. 700 animals is a lot of experience.
You've seen the color of my hair?
Which happened at a very young age.
I wonder why.
I wonder why. I think they certainly taught you a lot about paying attention because you were watching them and learning from them. They taught you a lot about adaptability. Certainly, if we watch our own animals, they teach us a lot about being resilient because
Yes.
they're generally better at that than we are. Certainly, with what you're describing for us today, you did not assume you already knew everything. There was that part of you that was feeling like, hey, I've researched this, I've got the very best food, everything's fine, but you still were open to the idea of possibly making things even better.
But in truth, I wasn't at the beginning. Quite little. I started to realize, I started to get hungry. What more I could learn. That was tricky too.
You certainly then were exploring a lot of different methods to pull into the BrightHaven Way for so many different animals. Since we're releasing the book this week,
Wow.
I know, what do you hope readers will take from it? You're still digesting it. I can see that, the look on your
I
face.
don't know. I really don't know because, yes, I'm still in shock that you actually thought of putting this together for other people. What I would like people to get most is the enjoyment of learning about the animals, because it was all about the animals. It was all about and is all about helping animals. There's another, is not a menu, but I find it fascinating that my journey has been learning how to help animals. And then that has gradually morphed into learning how to help people to help their animals. Because as the sanctuary finally closed back in 2018 or whenever it was, I felt like my life had ended. It was not an easy time. And if that hadn't happened, it wouldn't have pushed me forward into my newly developed passion to actually help people, to eventually meet you and start the BrightHaven Caregiver Academy. We have all those beautiful animals who taught us the lessons that it's now our mission to share those with others.
Absolutely. That's what was so visible and apparent in the manuscript when I found it, because I remember that just coming through the mail. I didn't know what was coming, what I was going to find in my inbox that day. Then I read the title, the working title you had for it at the time, and started looking at how you were approaching things. I just remember I wrote back and I said, I've just been looking at this PDF. Why didn't you publish it?
I don't even remember that.
I had the year of 2019 as the last time you worked on it.
I was probably still dabbling towards the end. I remember actually reaching a point where I felt, I don't know, I need to take a break. I've come to the end of this chapter of the life of BrightHaven. I don't know, maybe life got in the way and I totally had forgotten about it. It was only when you'd asked me, or actually we'd been talking about the future of BrightHaven and me, of course, and what I wanted for my future. And you'd said to me at that time, I'm interested in the history and any documents that you might have had, because we need to save them. I think I searched and found several documents. I didn't read them. I just looked at the titles. And what was the title of that document?
Oh God, I should have looked it up because it was a long title.
I have no idea. I just
I-
kept it as a Word document and I would just add little bits.
Yeah, and it was about all stages of life and everything. I think it's what intrigued me because it didn't sound like it was the menu for healing.
My story is what
Right,
it wasn't about the menu for healing, but I guess as I was writing my memories, it was more about my memories of the animals and the people who I'd met that had so beautifully changed my life. It was more about that than it was the creation of a menu for healing.
I was just amazed by it because the foundation was there. It was just a matter of finishing it up and making it available to people. Besides that, you're a birthday girl this month.
Oh, God.
Which was also part of the motivation to celebrate your 80th birthday with something that reflects who you are and who you became, helped by just a few animals along the way.
Are you sure it's not my 21st?
Because you feel you want to do it all over again.
And I think that's a lesson that I've learned. I think it's there for all of us in one way or another. Sometimes we honor it, sometimes we push it away. But if we have a passion for something, we should follow our heart. I didn't until I was 40, and finally I did. I realized that the previous 40 years, I'd been following the initial part. I don't know if I'd told this one before, but when I was 5 years old, I told my parents that when I grew up, I was going to be an animal doctor and an airline hostess. I did both. I didn't fly. I worked on the ground in special services for several airlines. That part of my life, looking back, was about learning to help people, because that's what my job was, to help people, to help them be comfortable and assured of safety, and to be there for them. Because when people are traveling through an airport, they are generally like, where do I go? What do I do? You're on edge. So that was my job, and I absolutely loved it. When I came to America, it went away and I was brokenhearted. I loved my job and I had no idea what I was going to do with the rest of my life. So it's interesting that at the age of 40 is when I stepped into the world of animals. And here I am 40 years later. Ooh, that made me goosey. I hadn't thought about it that way, but yes, it's like the first 40 was about people. Second 40 was totally about animals. Now they're all meshed up together in this beautiful circle, circle of life.
The relationship we have with them. We're releasing the book on a pay what you wish basis, which feels very aligned with the spirit of BrightHaven. So we're going to make it accessible to everyone while allowing people to support the book and support BrightHaven at whatever level feels right. So if the book speaks to you, we hope you will support it in a way that feels comfortable. Gail, I guess what I want to say at the end is what really struck me about the book, as I said when I first read it, was how honest you are. Now, I know you as an honest person, as you are in so many of the podcast episodes that we talk about where you share your feelings and your thoughts about very difficult concepts. In your book, you shared all your doubts about things you were trying, your own resistances to change, your own learning curve. I think that makes the philosophy of the BrightHaven Way even stronger because it wasn't created overnight. It was created through experience, through mistakes, but mostly through paying attention to what the animals were teaching you. And that is something every pet parent can relate to because we're all learning. We're all evolving as we learn with our pets, and we're all doing the very best we can with what we know, while always hopefully finding something new to learn to support our animals and ourselves. I want to end by saying I'm really glad that we're bringing the BrightHaven Way into the world in this form.
Thank you. I'm excited, scared, you name it. It just feels scary in so many ways and yet exciting. It means the world. It just means the world to know that the animals and the people who taught me have done such a wonderful job to create an organization such as BrightHaven that had all these amazing experiences and gained so much knowledge and passion to help others.
I really do feel the way you've shared your own evolution as a pet owner, as a caregiver in the BrightHaven Sanctuary is really going to help a lot of pet parents out there.
So I don't see it as being about me. I don't see it as being about me. It's about them. It's about wise people and wise animals who have guided this path that has helped so many people already.
I think we've got the right name.
I think so too.
Right, the BrightHaven Way, lessons from 700 animal teachers. There were just a few teachers.
Yes.
With that, we'll call an end to this conversation. We talked about many things we haven't talked about before, which is why I think the book will be of interest to people who have followed BrightHaven for a long time, but you're talking about so many things in very different ways. So we thank you for being with us today and hope you'll be back with us next week. Bye-bye now.
Goodbye.
Thank you for joining us on Peace of Mind for Pet Parents. We hope today's episode has offered you support and insight as you care for your aging or ill pets.
Remember, it's not just about the end, it's about living well at every stage of life. To continue your journey with us, explore more resources at BrightHaven Caregiver Academy's website, brightpathforpets.com, where you'll find guides, assessments, and a caring community of pet parents like you. Until next time, may you and your pets find comfort, connection, and peace in every moment. Take care.